I welcome us to today's tutorials on how to write project with Sunday Eze Uchenna. We are in lecture 7. If you are just joining us, do well to watch our previous videos before watching this current one. So let's begin. Today we'll be looking at research methodology, which is our chapter 3, how to write our chapter 3. So the specific objectives here is that by the end of the chapter, the learner should be able to report on the following subheadings of research methodology: design of the study, area of the study, population of the study, sample and sampling techniques, instrument of data collection, validation of the instrument, reliability of the instrument, method of data collection, and method of data analysis. So we are going to take them one after the other. But before then, what is research methodology? Methodology comprises the design of the study, area of the study, population of the study, sample and sampling technique, instrument for data collection, validation of the instrument, reliability of the instrument, method of data collection, and the method of data analysis. It is in this chapter, which is our chapter 3, that the researcher informs the public or the sponsor of the project about the systematic approach he or she chose to employ in carrying out the research work. The first subheading is the design of the study. So when we talk about the design of the study, we are referring to the general approach adopted in executing the research study. What is required here is for the researcher to specify and justify the type of the research design that was followed in carrying out the investigation. You remember in of our classes, I taught us about research design. I listed many of them. So you are going to specify which of those research design is suitable for the research you are about to carry out. Is it descriptive survey? Is it expo factor? Is it correlation? And so on. You specify it. Having stated the specific research design adopted, the researcher should explain or justify why the design is the most suitable or appropriate for the investigation in question. This is done by showing how the essential features or elements that define the research design are applicable to the investigation. After stating a particular research design, you are going to tell us your reason why you think that research design is the most suitable. And in stating which one is most suitable, you must cite a credible source that supports your reason. In our example, I'm going to show us what we mean by that. Let's look at this example. For example, the design that was used for this study was correlation research design. According to Nwogu, 2015, a correlation research design seeks to establish the relationship that exists between two or more variables. This design was employed because the study sought to establish the relationship that exists between information and communication technology and secondary school students' academic achievement in biology. So if you look at what I just read now from this example, I brought it out from a project work that was written on influence of ICT in the teaching and learning of biology. And here, the researcher is telling us that the research design is going to use here is correlation research design. And also, he was able to prove to us why he's using that study by giving us what Wog 2015 said regarding correlation. And at the end of it, he now linked it up to his work by telling us that this design was employed because it sought to establish a relationship that exists between information and communication technology and secondary school students' academic achievement in biology. So this is how you are going to do your own research design. Then the next one is area of the study. The area of the study refers to the geographical location covered by the study, which is usually stated in terms of the country, state, education, political, or administrative zone, local government areas, etc., as the case may be, with reasons why that area was chosen for the study. So, all this long English, what this long English is telling us here is that The area of the study is where you specify the area you are using for your study. Are you using a local government? Are you using a whole state? Are you using a particular political zone? Are you using a particular country? You understand? So it is under this area of the study that you will state that for us. Let's say, for example, I am writing on drug abuse, influence of drug abuse on youth in Zangon Kataf local government. You see now, my area of study now is Zangon Kataf local government. So after stating the location, you also state your reason for choosing that location. You state your reason. Why do you think that that particular area you chose for your study is the most appropriate for the study you are about to carry out? So the next one is population of the study. Under the population of the study, the researcher specifies the aggregate of the items or persons whom he is going to use in his study. Who are those persons you are using for your study, or what are those items you are using for your study? This is where you specify it under the population of the study. You specify it. Those people that at the end of the day, when you get your findings, that your findings can be applied to them. And then you also give us a reason. Why do you think that that study you're about to carry out, that this population are the most appropriate suited for that study? And I gave us an instance here. I said, for example, using that same ICT influence on academic achievement, the population here says the population of the study comprises 156 senior secondary school students in SS2 offering biology in the 21 public secondary schools in the Igbeze North local government. Out of the 1,156 students, 452 are male, while 704 secondary school students are females. The SS2 students were chosen for the study because it is believed that they have. So after stating that, the researcher went further to tell us why he chose SS2 students. Why didn't he choose SS1? Why didn't he choose SS3? He now stated that the SS2 students were chosen for the study because it is believed that they have acquired more knowledge on biology content of the areas indicated poor academic achievement than SS1 students. And for SS3 students are about to enter into external examination, which is WAEC. So, which means that they are not available. Why SS1 don't have much knowledge about biology. So that is why they choose SS2. After you must have mentioned the population, you tell us why you chose that population. Then the next one is sample and sampling technique. The sample, also known as the portion of the population from which data were actually collected, is defined here, as well as how it was obtained, including the sampling techniques. In a situation that involves multi-stage sampling, it is important for clarity that the researcher present a stage-by-stage description of the sampling procedure. I'm going to explain what this English is saying. Let's assume that your population is public senior secondary schools. And then in these public senior secondary schools, you decide to work with only SS2 students across all these public secondary schools. That SS2 student that you are using now stand as a sample of the whole population, because you are not using the whole population. Rather, you just took a sample, you just took a portion of that senior secondary school student. You use just a portion of it. So that portion you are using, whatsoever it is that you discover at the end of the day, after using them for your research, you can be able to apply on the whole population, because that sample you are bringing out stands in as the representative of that population. So you have to be very careful that when you are bringing out your sample, ensure that your sample actually covers or stands out as a representative of a population. Let's say, for example, you are running a research work and you are dealing with students from mixed school that have boys and girls. And then you decide to bring out your sample and you brought out only boys, leaving the girls behind. You cannot be able to get a very good result at the end of the day, because you omitted some characteristics, some variables that are there. But once you are able to bring out, since that I'm dealing with a class, I'm running a project on a class, and then in that class there is boys and there are girls. Then I came out, let's assume we have 50 boys and we have 100 girls. So I now remove one boy and I remove two girls. You see, I've already removed a sample of that population. And then when I use them to run my study, whatever I get, I can be able to apply it to everybody there because I actually removed a representative of that population. And I gave us an example here. I said the sample size of the study comprises of 300 students with 128 male and 172 female. These are the sample, 300 taken from that 1,000 plus students that we saw in the population. Now it's only 300 of these students that was removed. So, and I also made mention of multi-stage. When we talk about multi-stage now, it's under the sampling technique. What is sampling technique? So now I've already explained the sample. So let's look at the sampling technique. The sampling technique now is telling us the processes you undergo in getting your sample. What are those processes you took in order for you to obtain your sample? That is the sampling technique. Then the next one is instrument for data collection. The instrument of data collection are those instruments that a researcher develop in order to use to collect the data from those samples. For example, let's say you make a questionnaire. A questionnaire is an instrument that you administer to those your sample, those persons you brought out or those items you brought out for your sample. That questionnaire now is an instrument for data collection. You are using it to collect data from those sample and whatever data you are bringing out. Before you decide the type of instrument you are going to make, you have to know the type of sample that you are using. The type of sample that you are using that will determine the type of instrument you are going to bring out. The type of research you are carrying out determines the type of sample you'll be using. And the type of sample you are using determines the type of instrument you are going to use for data collection. So when we talk about instrument of data collection, this is where the researcher states the instrument that he or she is using for data collection. For example, I said the instrument used in the study is a structured questionnaire titled Information and Communication Technology on Students' Academic Achievement in Biology and Biology Achievement Test. So let's go to the next one. Validation of the instrument. This describes the procedures adopted in ensuring that the instrument used measured what it was designed to measure. It is very important to establish and report one or more forms of validity evidence for the instrument. This enhances the technical quality or strength of the study. So what are we talking about here? The researcher will report how his instrument was validated. And what do we mean by validated? That is when the instrument is subjected to a test to check if it actually measured what it is said to measure. This is where the researcher reports how his instrument was validated. So what do we mean by validation? What we mean here is that the instrument is being taken to some experts in research, and they will go through the instrument to ensure that actually that the instrument was designed properly. First of all, the instrument will pass through phase validation, content validation, and so on. Then after that, it shows that yes, that the instrument actually is good to be used for that particular research work. For instance, I gave us here, I said the phase and content validation of the instrument was done by presenting the instrument together with papers of the study, research question, hypothesis, marking guides, and table of specification to three experts. What all this long English that we just read now is saying is that validation of instrument is where the researcher reports how his instrument was validated. Whereas where the researcher will tell us how the instrument was subjected to phase validation and content validation by experts to ensure that the instrument is actually measuring what it intends to measure. Then the next one is reliability of the instrument. The reliability of the instrument concerns the consistency with which an instrument measures whatever it measures. The method used in establishing the evidence of the reliability of an instrument should be reported. This includes the magnitude of that evidence in terms of the actual reliability coefficient. Also, the reason for choosing a particular method of reliability must be stated. So I'm going to explain this long English. What the long English is saying now is after this instrument have been subjected to validation, after the instrument have been validated, there's also a need to also test for reliability to be sure that this instrument is reliable. That is the consistency with which the instrument can keep measuring what it was designed to measure. And we do this by checking the actual reliability coefficient. So the actual reliability coefficient of that instrument will tell us whether this instrument is reliable or not. And the higher an instrument is to 1, the more reliable it is. Let me say, for example, if you subject an instrument to a reliability test and then you were getting something like 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, it shows that the instrument is not reliable. But when you start getting instrument above 0.5, let's say 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, the higher it is to 1, the higher the reliability. So for example now, an instrument that has a reliability coefficient of 0.5 is lower than an instrument that have a reliability coefficient of 0.9. So I gave us an example here on how to report the reliability test. I said the trial testing was done using 30 biology students with 15 males and 15 female, all from schools that are outside the sampled schools for the study, but in the same local government area, because the schools still have the same characteristics, which is poor academic achievement in biology. The data obtained after the trial testing were subjected to test of internal consistency by using Kuda-Richardson KR20 method of reliability coefficient test for the instrument. This is a type of reliability test, a reliability tool. This method was chosen because it is efficient in determining the internal consistency of dichotomous scored items. When you hear the word dichotomous is referring to items that have only one option. Let's say, for example, you are testing an achievement test that they ask, what is an apple? A fruit, B, a cup, C, a dog, D, a glass. You understand? The answer there is fruit. So only one answer is correct. So when you are dealing with instruments that have only one answer as correct, you use Kuda-Richardson KR20 method of reliability. But when you are dealing with an instrument where none of the options are wrong, let's say, for example, you are dealing with a questionnaire whereby you ask questions like, let's say you are working on that same information and communication technology. You now write something like, I use phone in doing my assignment. Strongly agreed, agreed, disagree, strongly disagreed. You understand, something like that? And then all the respondent, the person who chose strongly agreed is not wrong. The person who chose agreed is not wrong. The person who chose strongly disagree is not wrong. The person who chose disagree is not wrong. So when you are dealing with that type, what you use is Cronbach alpha coefficient of reliability test. So that's the type you are going to use for that one. So the next one is method of data collection. This is where you tell us how you collected your data. The researcher reports the steps taken to collect the pertinent data. This entails stating whether the data were collected by the researcher himself or with the help of field assistants, by online means, or on the spot administration. So I give an example of how to report this instrument for data collection. Ensure you always go through all those examples I was giving. All those examples are how you can present your own work when you are writing it. So Let's look at this one I gave you. I said the instrument was administered to SS2 biology students. The researcher collected introduction letters to the principal of the sample schools from head of departments of science education, the Faculty of Education, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Remember, I told you people I was using a work from University of Nigeria, Nsukka. On arrival at the school, the researchers secured permission from the principals by introducing themselves to the principal using the introduction letter and their student's identification card. The researchers thereafter administered the instrument by themselves. The researchers monitored the filling of the instrument appropriately and collected the instrument immediately after they were filled. The questionnaire instrument was first administered and collected before administering the achievement test. So this is how you're going to report your method of data collection. Then the next one after that is method of data analysis, which is also the last part in chapter 3. Here, the researcher reports the statistical technique or tools that was employed in analyzing the data. Also, the researcher must state the reasons for choosing a particular statistical tool. What this long English is saying is that it is this method of data analysis that will tell that you will inform your supervisor or your sponsor, whomsoever, or the public, the type of analysis that you did. What statistical tool did you use for your analysis? This is where you are going to state it. And then the reason why, out of all the tools that we have, why did you choose this particular tool? So you are going to state it for us. I'm going to give us an example of how to write it. So in the example I gave us here, I said the data collected from the respondent was analyzed using regression analysis and ANOVA. The reason for the choice of the statistical analysis is because regression analysis is a statistical technique that is used for predicting the relationship between two or more variables. I hope you people remember that this particular study on information and communication technology, when we were in our research design, they said that they use correlation research design, and they said that correlation research design is all about a research design that deals with the relationship between two or more variables. So since they are dealing with a research design that has to do with two or more variable, relationship between two or more variables, definitely the statistical tool that must be used in this research has to be a research design that predicts the relationship that exists between two or more variables. Do you understand? So you don't just, maybe you are dealing with a study that is dealing on relationship, you now leave it and go and start using a statistical tool that has nothing to do with relationship, then you are losing it completely. So your research design will give you a clue to the type of statistical tool you're going to use for your study. We'll be treating chapter 4. I'm going to say more about these statistical tools. I'm going to mention them to us and tell us how all these things works. This is where we come to the end of today's tutorials, and I thank you all for being part of today's class, and feel free to drop your questions in the comment box. If you have not yet joined our discussion class, do well to join and feel free to ask me your question. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you will not miss out in the next episode. Thank you for watching and God bless you. See you in the next class.